a little hesitation apart from perhaps some reservations around online coaching, such as I understood it previously. I've known of online coaches in the running world, athletics, my previous sport, and they tended to be fairly generic and perhaps not as valuable as I was hoping this would be. Where I was would be next to nowhere. I was in the grip of a very long-term injury and hadn't really been able to progress to the point where I was able to train properly with a normal training squad. And I had acquired enough of a foothold in terms of health to maybe start to build. So I thought that I would reach out to yourself on the back of Instagram content that I'd seen, which seemed reasonably persuasive, to help add a bit of structure to my progression from um, very low training base to a point where I could train and engage properly with a regular club. Firstly, there was the introduction of UT2 training in the way that you define it in your program. So very strictly capped at a certain percentage of heart rate or using other metrics to ensure that it's in the correct zone of intensity. Uh, Previously, most of the training that I'd done with other clubs and other programs had been uh, all at a similar level of intensity. Yes, certain days were supposed to be easy or just basic volume days, but they were not nearly as contained in terms of effort. And so I found it useful to add this string to my training bow, such as it was, because I never had trained at under 70% heart rate. So that was developing a different energy system, the aerobic metabolism unadulterated by higher levels of intensity and lactate. That was one point. I also found working with Taylor that the technique critiques, when I was able to supply video footage of myself on the erg or on the water, were useful. So I could get his seasoned eye on what I was doing and how I was moving and how to improve that. So I definitely became better at UT2 doing that in the way we defined it, which was trying to improve your maximum split at 70% of your heart rate or lower. So my ability to perform within that intensity range improved. And I expect that probably did have knock-on positive effects on my performance in other ranges of intensity. Another outcome of training at UT2 is probably a healthier track record. Up until at least this point in my season, I wasn't experiencing the injury setbacks that had prevented me from returning to the sport before working with you guys. And I think that's because I was no longer trying to, keep every split at 2 minutes or under at rate 18. I
Hmm.
was allowing myself to let the splits drift far slower than that if need be, in order to conform to the bounds of the heart rate intensity. It felt good to have a good UT2 session. The way I describe it is it felt like cleaning my teeth or cleaning out my system in a way. You were definitely training and you were engaging the aerobic system, but you weren't trashing your body or your aerobic system. I liked how I felt when it was going well. And of course, we had some disruptions over the course of my work with you guys, chief of which was my concussion, which took me out for a month and then sort of stymied progress in the weeks as I was returning. But the good UT2 sessions were always good. I definitely became comfortable having uh, shitty or unimpressive splits on my screen, in private or in public. And even now, the problem I have at the moment is that I'm always racing people on the water, because my ego is definitely tied up in how I perform there. And so that's probably contributed to the issues I've been experiencing of late. Um, but I don't mind so much being on an erg next to another guy and his splits being much lower than mine. I'm able to decouple the self-worth as an athlete from what those numbers say and just understand that the point is trying to accelerate those splits over time in the correct heart rate zone uh, relative to myself. So that's good. Some greater sense of comfort in terms of training and self-concept. Other benefits. There was a lot of resilience necessary to get through that period of time. Not because you guys were throwing up obstacles, but because I encountered a lot of them myself in terms of my relocation, uh, challenges to recovery, the concussion, a lot of these other things. And yeah, Taylor was a good companion as I was working through all of those. There's a wealth of resource and knowledge and experience contained within yourself and Taylor, and I'm sure other members of your staff as well. Um, at Tideway Strollers, people talked about you, Jack, as an example of somebody who was successful despite um, impediments or a lack of natural gifts. That is to say, not being a giant and coming from a non-traditional background, etc. So they've independently arrived at the conclusion that you have a method that works. No, it was, yeah, the program was most useful towards the end when I was able to row more and more, and it was least useful when I was hurt or medically unwell. And that makes sense because you guys have, I think there's just less to say when your ability to train is constrained by uh, exogenous medical factors. Um, yeah, but you also, I think there was a bit of a mix-up, and I ended up getting a month for free, so that was very generous of you, and was pleased to continue working with Taylor for that period of time. Felt I had reasonably regular contact with Taylor. We had a call every 2 weeks, and of course we were able to exchange messages on WhatsApp, so that was good. You sent through the Chinese GoPro knockoff, which worked perfectly well on the sessions that I was able to affix that to the single. Yeah, all that was good.